Hi, my name is TJ. My dad died of overdose on January 1st, 2011, and my mom is a recovering addict. God helped my mom, and now together we are here to help you. Now let's talk recovery. Here's your host, my mom, Susan Sexton-Wood.
Hi, and welcome to Let's Talk Recovery. I'm Debbie Lahman, your host for today, and you've seen me a few times now, so you're probably a little bit used to me. Well, today, the day that we're filming this, is actually April 17th. And today is a very special day, especially at Unchained Praisess. And that's because it is Susan Sexton-Wood's birthday. Happy birthday, Susan.
Thank you.
And we are here today, and I get to be in the little hot seat here to talk to you. I might talk about you. You never know what I'm going to do, right? But I wanted the audience to know that today is your birthday. Mm-hmm. Now, when this program airs, it'll probably be next month, sometime in May. But yesterday, when you came into the office and you had mentioned that it was your birthday, and you weren't really very happy about that, were you?
No, just thinking about turning 45.
But then I came in today because I thought about this morning as I was getting ready to come to work, and I thought, Susan, you need to be shouting with all types of joy that you can proclaim that you are 45 today. Mm-hmm. And that's because, why?
Because I'm alive.
Amen. Talk to us about that. Talk about those times that were not as smooth and were extremely hard. Tell our audience about that, because I think it's important to embrace the fact that you are alive. Mm-hmm. And do not get hung up about the age. So I'm going to let you have some freedom there and go with it.
Well, being an active addiction, I've overdosed once, and I had Narcan didn't work for me, so they had to shock me back. And so you're right, and that's why God's put you in the office to help put me in check.
What did you say I was?
You're right.
Oh, say it one more time.
You're right.
I just want to hear that. I don't hear that a lot, so yeah. I really like to hear that. But please go ahead with your story.
So there were many years in active addiction that I didn't really celebrate birthday. I was always under the influence, and if I did celebrate, it was partying that I celebrated. So it was really just numbing myself. It wasn't really enjoying the day. I was a little discouraged yesterday just thinking about turning 45, but then I look at myself and I don't look 45. So, and that's huge when it comes to being a recovering addict, because we destroy ourselves inside and outside. And so I don't look like I used to look. And when you start getting better, the life comes back to you. So it's just different. It's just different. And today I do embrace things, even though I struggle sometimes and I need to be put in check. And that's why God's put people around me to help me, help remind myself.
And isn't that the whole situation when you're on that journey to recovery, to have the people in your life that make you accountable? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter whether you're in addiction or whether you're not in addiction. We all need to have accountability. Yes. And I don't even really like saying, and even more so in addiction, because although I've never been in addiction, I need to be accountable. Mm-hmm. I need to be accountable, to those people that I have in my life that are going to make sure that I'm on the right path. Because being on the wrong path does not mean that it's strictly going down the pathway of drugs. Because it can be different avenues and different streets and valleys and whatnot that you're on. So I think that is a huge thing. That talking about that and talking about accountability and having people in your life, is that something that is difficult for somebody that is in that journey to really embrace accountability? Is that something that's fought a lot?
At the beginning of recovery, it is. We're not used to it. We're not used to being held accountable, and we are so used to numbing ourselves that feelings of really caring aren't there because we're numb. We try to stay away from family and friends that we really care about because we don't want them to see us like that in active addiction. So at the beginning, it's unknown to us. It's something that's unknown, and we have to practice it.
The numbing, like you were talking about, when you are not in addiction and there is no numbness anymore, and you start feeling, just feeling, whether it's happiness, whether it's pain, whether it's sorrow, whether it's disappointment. All of those things are things that when you're on that road to recovery, that you have to be able to start embracing and start learning. And that is not a quick process, is it?
No. We're a hot mess.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we all are. But I do understand what you're saying, because I think that is something that sometimes the non-addict, if you will, whether it's family members or just community or society as a whole, they're thinking that, well, if you're if you're sober, as it were, then everything should be hunky-dory, just like that. Everything's fine. But that's not the case, is it?
No.
So tell us how, whether it's letting our audience, the family members and the community know how that process really needs to be, as well as how it needs to be for the addict. But do you understand my question there? Oh, good.
Yeah. Well, with the addict, a lot of us really need some one-on-one, some counseling, whether it's a peer-to-peer counselor or a drug and alcohol counselor, therapist, to work through some of those underlying issues that we're bringing to the surface when we do choose recovery, because a lot of the emotions hit us like a ton of bricks, especially, like, just speaking for myself. I lost custody of my kids. I woke up next to my fiance dead of overdose. I got worse in my addiction. I almost lost my arm to using heroin, homeless, just lost and depressed. And when I went into treatment, in an inpatient treatment, I need glasses or contacts to even see. I didn't have either one of those. I didn't have my birth certificate, my social security card, an ID. I didn't have anything. I had to completely start over. So just thinking about sitting in my room at that time and thinking about everything that I had been through, and I put myself through it because those were choices that I made. It was hard to deal with. It was hard to deal with because I made those decisions, and I was real hard on myself. Susan, you're stupid. Why would you ever do that? You're never going to amount to nothing. But it's also things that I heard because of being an addict. And I started putting those words on myself. So really what helped me was being in that inpatient facility and them teaching me structure and getting up and going to classes, and the structure was huge for me because there wasn't a lot of time to just sulk in what was going on with my emotions, but I could work on them little by little in the classes, and then when I had the one-on-one counseling sessions, I could do it little by little. So with parents and loved ones of addicts, I think the biggest thing is not to pressure the loved one that suffers with addiction to work through everything at once, because it can send us back out. If we're so overwhelmed with emotion, we're so used to covering that up, that's the first thought when we get overwhelmed. And so I would encourage them to just be careful and be mindful of what their loved one's going through.
Well, do they have to be like the loved ones? Okay, do they have to be walking on eggshells all the time, or how strong can they be where that person is involved? I mean, there's got to be a balance there somewhere.
Yeah, to set boundaries and hold someone accountable is it's needed. But I know that I've seen so many times where people think that we just go into treatment and we are working on our emotions and everything is just fine, and you need to get back to life and get your job and get your kids and get your home, and it doesn't work that way. Right. We've lived so long, most of us have lived years in active addiction, and you take somebody that's lived years in active addiction and they have to start their life over. It's rewiring our brains. We are used to living that way. And when we choose recovery, we have to learn how to live a different way. So the emotions and mentally and physically, all of that's different. It starts to become different. I can tell you that I just hit 6 years on March the 19th, and I still have things that come up. Yep. And there's plenty of times when we're in the office, I've just broke down crying.
Yep.
It happens.
Yes,
but that's part of my recovery. I don't hold it in like I used to, because God's worked in my heart, and now I cry more in front of people than I ever used to.
Yeah, it usually makes you pretty mad when you do that.
Yeah.
And I keep telling you it's okay.
Well, it's not as bad as it used to be, right, because I would really try to shut it down. Right. But I think I'm learning to embrace that, and I just go with it. And so when things are happening in my life, one of the biggest places that I start sharing it is in the office. When we're in the office and I need to work on some things, I have to talk about it. And that's my recovery. If we're not talking, it's hard to heal.
Right, right. Well, and you mentioned about the one-on-one, whether it's a recovery coach, a counselor, a peer group, and all of that. That is something I think that is so essential. And I think sometimes, and you hit it right on the head just a few moments ago when you're talking about, okay, so you're sober now, and that our loved ones sometimes expect things to happen too quickly. Does the addict expect things to happen too quickly?
Oh, yeah. We want our kids back, our home, a job. We want everything that we lost, we want it back. I know I learned in my recovery that I didn't want to be that person that I used to be before addiction. If I wanted to be that person, I never would have used. And so I wanted something different. I didn't want all those things back that I used to have, because if I enjoyed life then, I never would have used. So I wanted to be a different person.
So how do you define Susan Sexton-Wood today?
Well, I am a wife, and I'm a mother, and even though I'm not the nurturer that most women are, God's changing that, and I'm learning to embrace that. I'm learning to humble myself a little bit more. It's okay to cry. It's okay to talk about things. It's okay to heal. And God led me to start the ministry of Unchained Praisess, and that's who I am today. I'm a voice of recovery, and He gave me the voice to use for a reason. And so that's where the voice of hope come from. And it's not only me being the voice of hope, even though He started the ministry through me, there's a lot of people that have come alongside. Anybody in recovery can be the voice of hope. That's just our motto, because of the events, and we want to bring the voice the voices of hope together to let people know that there is life after addiction.
Do you think that that addicts, I know I'm stigmatizing here, but those in addiction, do you feel that it's so difficult for them to embrace the possibility of hope?
I think it depends on where you're at in your active addiction. If you're homeless and your family has nothing to do with you, you have no job, you have no vehicle, maybe staying in homeless shelters, it's going to be hard to find hope. If someone realizes that they are an addict and they haven't lost everything, they would probably have a little more hope of changing their life than somebody who's lost everything.
Okay, so your first one that you just mentioned, the one who is homeless, has nothing, period. Talk to them. What can we do as Unchained Praisess? What do we have to offer them?
Well, we're there to help with the beginning of recovery, the detox, the inpatient, the afterwards. We're here to help connect people to the community and what's out there. We're here to do one-on-one recovery plans.
Yeah, but they don't have any money. How are they going to do that?
Because we do it for free.
Oh, I knew that. But I did want that out there because you don't know who's listening to this and when they're listening to it. And that is extremely important, is that we do offer it free. And it's through the generosity of our supporters and that we can do that. And yet it is something that I know is being extremely heavy on your heart, and it is all of ours too, to be able to still do that, because you pointed it out when you come out of addiction, or you didn't have your license, you didn't have, you needed contacts or glasses and all of these things that you didn't have. And all of those things cost money.
Yeah.
And then to be able to get you to function, just to be able, by having, your Social Security cards, your glasses, to be able to see, to be able to, get a job and all these kind of things, that becomes your first priority, even though you cannot neglect the fact that I need to be on this recovery journey. And then to say, now I got to pay for it, that's a huge thing.
Well, if we can learn to be a little patient, which is hard to do, and we get into a facility to help us with the early stages of recovery, you'd be amazed at how things come together. And that's what I would encourage. If someone needs the detox and then they need inpatient, we try to connect people to facilities that don't cost, or if you can get a job after a couple months, then you pay your way. And that's what we're about, is we try to connect something that's not going to cost, so it's not a worry. I went to a place that didn't cost anything, and God provided all of the things that I needed. I got my birth certificate, I got my Social Security card, I got an ID. I started getting the things that I needed. And so I think as long as we're trying to change our life and we choose recovery, all of our needs will be met. It's just hard to grasp that concept when you're homeless and you've lost everything, and you think it would take years and years to get our lives back, when realistically it doesn't. It doesn't take that long.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
Now speak in the same sense to the families that we were just talking. We were talking about the person in addiction, and how would you now speak to the families on where are they in this? And not only that, but that's something that we cannot forget, is that we sometimes, and it's kind of easy, I guess, to do that. You do focus on the person in addiction, and it's their welfare and well-being that we're thinking of, and we want to get them out of that and to get them on the right path. But those others that are still hurting and going through things would be the family members, and that's something else that Unchained Praisess can help with as well.
Yeah.
So you want to address that?
We do help loved ones of addicts, help them understand addiction. They have their own recovery because their loved one's addiction can consume their life. I would encourage families to let their loved one go through a lot of the process by themselves. Even though they're there and they're going to love them through it, don't try to run their recovery. Don't lay it out and say, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to come stay with us, you're going to, that's too much pressure. And we have to learn how to build our lives by ourselves. So to go into, say someone goes into an inpatient that doesn't cost any money, they have time to let what has happened in their life sink in, but they have a few months to work on themselves. They'll have visits from family, and they'll learn how to start building their life again without somebody handing it to them. I've seen lots of times where families want to, here's the car, here's a place to live, here's a job, here's some money, and people are very quick to go back into addiction when they're not working as hard for their life again.
So if I'm a mama and my child is going through that, and I'm going to say, but I don't want them to be on the street. I want to provide for them.
Well, and it's not being on the street. If they're in recovery, and we're talking about recovery, and they're
facility.
In an inpatient facility,
Gotcha.
they're not on the street. And I encourage family members not to enable at all. If they're in active addiction and you know your loved one's in active addiction and you're giving them a place to live and you're giving money and you're giving them a car to drive, that's enabling. You could kill them. But the recovery aspect, we need to work on our recovery. If our family member is always with us at meetings and they want to sit in on our therapy sessions, and we're not going to talk about everything at the beginning anyways. Today I'm pretty open. I'll talk about things, but it took a while to get there. So in order to heal, we can't have our families hovering over us at every move that we make.
So do you have you had family members come with their addicted family member to sit in on a session? And if so, how do you handle that?
Well, it's always up to the person that is coming in. And I always encourage that if they're going to do some things together, that's fine. But I always encourage them to come in separate. Even if they're going to come in together sometimes, that they still come in separate. And when I encourage meetings that are out in the community, if the loved one wants to attend meetings, I encourage them to attend one, but let their loved one go to other meetings by themselves. Because too much being with the person all the time,
pressure.
You just, at the very beginning of recovery especially, you're not going to be that open. And that could hinder somebody's recovery.
Well, and you've mentioned this several times, and of course I hear it all the time as well, from you. But it's that little word called choose. That's huge.
Yeah.
That is a large word, because when you make the choice, that is a free thing that you've done, because it is your decision. Now, I'm assuming that you have probably seen and met with people where they were, I'm going to say maybe almost forced to meet with you, but it wasn't their choice yet.
Yeah.
There's a difference with that. Speak to that. And how you can encourage somebody on not pushing.
Well, there have been some people that have been forced to come in, and I just try to make them as comfortable as I can and let them know my story, that I am a recovering addict and I'm just there to help listen, connect, and motivate them. I'm not a therapist. I'm not going to tell them what to do or how to do it, but I'm going to encourage them to make decisions for themselves that will help their lives grow in their recovery and to move forward without constantly living in the past. So I just, as much as I can, as much as possible, not everybody's going to be comfortable, because if you have a chip on your shoulder and you don't want to be there, odds are you're probably just rolling your eyes and not paying attention. But usually after I share some of my story, most people say, you just don't even look like you used heroin. And once I share, they tend to open up a little bit.
Well, and then that, of course, that provides the hope,
Yeah.
because they see what they're terming obviously as success, and so you can give them that as well. Because I was definitely thinking about that connection there with the family, because we do, as family members, we get kind of the horse before the cart sometimes. We expect that to go at a much faster rate, and there's a lot of patience that needs to be given by the family members and loved ones, because we sometimes, I think, want results too quickly. I don't think, does the addict have that feeling of it needs to be quicker, or do they know and embrace the fact that I know, and that each step for them is a success?
We get discouraged if we feel like we're not moving fast enough. So that happens a lot. Sometimes I think that I should be further than I am. But through my recovery, I've learned that I'm right where God wants me, and I just continue to move forward.
Well, and that's the thing that I like so much, and this whole idea of a recovery journey. That is what it is, and it's not within a time frame,
Right.
because it is continual. I've seen it in you. I've seen you grow. I've seen, things that come across to in your life that you deal with. It is definitely. Well, you know what? I think this has been a good birthday for you.
Yeah.
How old are you?
45.
And you're proud of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'd like for you to do with the audience right now is, I think you need to share one of your poems.
Okay. And I've shared this many times. It's called Salvation.
I knew it. I knew that's what you were going to do.
Bad things happen, even when there's good inside. God gave you a smackdown. All along, you wonder why. Salvation is through Jesus Christ, the one that gave his life for you. Eternity starts from within. Broken hearts can become new. You've been very sick. I've sat by your side. Always got your back. I would never tell you bye. God's doing his work in your heart and mine. I love you from the bottom of my heart. Now I think it's the right time. I now introduce you to our Savior, Jesus Christ, the one they call the Messiah, the one that gave his own life. Ask for forgiveness. His arms are open wide. He will also never leave you, never high and dry. He can wash your sins away. He can break that ball and chain. Jesus Christ died for your sins. Just pray and he will guide your way.
We are here for you. You can call us at the number on your screen, and we'll be here waiting for you.